Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Van Build series. In this episode, I'm going to cover how I built my bench seat and perhaps my biggest mistake I've made in the build thus far. If you're new to this channel, my name's Dalton and I'm showing you how I built out my 2020 Ram Promaster. If you're not new to the channel, my name is still Dalton and I'm still showing you how I built my Ram Promaster. I see the redundancy now. So I think we all agree that the couch is kind of the center of our home. It's the place where we might eat, watch TV, entertain guests, and sleep when we're in trouble. Well, the bench seat is the van equivalent of the couch. It's where you hang out when you don't want to sit on your bed or your swivel seat. It's great for storage, and it can even serve as your guest bed. So how do we build one of these bad Larrys? Great question. I built this whole thing out of 2x2s, 1x2s, and the same 1x3 slats that I used for my bed. I talk about the benefit of using slats over plywood sheeting in my bed video, so if you haven't checked that out yet, be sure to check it out right up here. So I chose 2x2s because they're lightweight and strong, just like me. My bench seat journey began with measuring all my 2x2s and cutting them wrong, so I had to make another trip back to Home Depot. Frustration was quickly setting in and I hadn't even really started yet. See, I needed 15 17-inch pieces, but somewhere that got mixed up in my mind and I cut 15-inch pieces instead of the 17-inch pieces that I needed. Lame. After a run down to Home Depot, I made sure I cut these pieces the right way. The overall plan is to build a large box out of 2x2s with more vertical 2x2s acting as support pieces. So I started by measuring and cutting 2 long 2x2 pieces and adding what would eventually be the vertical support pieces in between them. That's what this weird ladder looking thing is. I connected all these pieces with wood glue and wood screws, as usual. Make sure you pre-drill all your screw holes so you don't split any boards and have to make a third trip back to Home Depot. If you aren't sure what pre-drilling means, just find a drill bit that's slightly smaller in diameter than the wood screw you're going to be using, drill that hole first, and then run your screw into that pre-drilled hole. So I made 2 of these ladder looking things, one for the back and one for the front. Once they were complete, I screwed the back one into the wall of my van and the floor. Before I add the front piece, I need to build the sides. I screwed these into place using pocket holes that I drilled out with my Craig jig. I actually made this step more difficult than it had to be. Instead of pocket holes, I should have just made a square out of the 2x2s and screwed that into place, but whatever, I did it with pocket holes and it works fine. It was just a little bit of extra effort. I don't know if I need to say it, but it's probably worth mentioning. Use a right angle here. You don't want to finish this project only to realize you built a wonky bench that looks like something out of a Dr. Seuss book. Once you finish with that little side piece, you can get back to your main squeeze, which in this case is the front of your bench. If you've measured everything correctly up to this point, this should go on nice and easy. All you need is a little bit of wood glue, some more wood screws. You're going to screw this right into the side pieces and the floor of your van. I guess it's important to mention here, if you guys haven't seen my video about building my floor, I did opt for 3/4 inch plywood, and that was because I knew I was going to screw some of my furniture into the floor, and so I wanted enough wood for it to really grab onto. If you guys don't have a plywood subfloor, you may not want to just start blasting screws right through the metal floor of your van. You may need to come up with another solution. For the fourth side of my bench, I have a battery in the way, so it changes things a little bit, but not too much. I had to break out my Craig jig again and drill some pocket holes to connect the final 2x2s of this fourth side. If you guys don't have any obstructions, you could just build a little square like I mentioned previously and screw that into place here. I couldn't just make a square here because I wanted a gap at the floor so I could slide my surfboards in and out from under my bench seat. So we now have the core of the bench frame built. At this point, there's a million different ways to build the top, but here's how I did mine. I built mine so the top could be removable or liftable, if that's a word. If you just want a fixed top on your bench, at this point, I'd probably just screw some slats into place, slap a cushion on it, and call it a day. But I'm guessing you guys probably want easy access to this space. So to do that, I grabbed some 1x2s and I fashioned them into a couple of rectangles. I made these top pieces extend past the base of my bench just a little bit because I thought it looked nicer, but it doesn't really serve any benefit from a functional perspective. I don't know, you could make it just as long and wide as your bench, or you could make them slightly longer if you want to kind of overhang just like my butcher block does here. I also chose to build the top of my bench seat with two kind of separate pieces, so it wasn't just one big long piece that I would take on and off, as my bench is about 6 feet long and that would seem real inconvenient inside the van. So I built the top of the bench in kind of two halves. One half will swing up on hinges and the other half is just going to Velcro on and off. The Velcro one kind of just covers up my electronic components, so if I need to work on the system for a while, I can just remove that. Otherwise, I don't really need that much regular access to the electronics. The section on hinges is to give me quick access to my storage, so I did want something that would just open and close pretty easily. You guys hear that bird screaming up there? So once you fashion these two rectangles out of the 1x2s, you're going to start spacing your slats on them inch or two apart. For the slats, I just use the same 1x3s that I used on my bed, but if all you have is 1x2s, you could just use those as well. I'm sure they'd work fine. So I just screwed the slats into either end of the 1x2 frame that I had built. Easy peasy. For the Velcro on bench seat top, all I did was take the Velcro strips, add a little bit of liquid nails, and just sort of glue those on to the four corners. For the swinging side, it took a little bit more effort. I had to create some more clearance. Otherwise, when I swing the bench up, it would hit the wall. So to get that clearance, all I did was I took that half and I did a bevel cut on it, which is essentially just like a 45-degree angle. I kind of lopped off the top back corner. That way I have the necessary clearance that I need to open this thing all the way. After that, I added two hinges that sit nicely on the inside of the bench, and I was ready to rock. I did actually have to add a tiny little third section right here. I built it right up to the back of the driver's side seat, and if I made the entire half over here swinging, then I would have to move my seat every time I wanted to swing it up. So I ended up just cutting the swinging portion and directly screwing that leftover little part right there. So it just kind of stays in place and acts as support for anyone sitting on the bench, but I still have nearly half the bench seat capable of swinging up on those hinges. Once I had both the Velcro on top and the hinge top added to my bench, I topped the whole thing with a custom sized bench pad that I ordered online. I'll add the link below if anybody else wants a custom sized cushion. I left the back end open as I kind of like the open concept look, and I feel like it gives me some extra airflow, which we know in a van, the more airflow, the better. Kind of helps prevent any moisture buildup or rot, especially since this is going to be where I store my surfboards. More than likely, those boards are going to be holding on to some moisture, and so I want a lot of airflow to make sure that they dry properly and that moisture doesn't get trapped inside the van. If you did want to cover these up because you don't like that sort of exposed open look, covering it with some 1/4-inch plywood would be quick and cost effective. And that's basically going to sum things up. That's how I built this bench seat. But wait, I'm so gassy right now. Wrong flashback. In this episode, I'm going to cover how I built my bench seat and perhaps my biggest mistake I've made in the build thus far. So what was my big mistake, other than making all the wrong cuts in the beginning? My whole objective originally with building this bench seat was as a means to store my surfboards. So I needed at least that much clearance underneath the bench. What that ultimately meant was that my bench was going to be pretty tall. 22 inches of clearance, plus the extra height from the 2x2s on top of that, plus the hinge on top with slats, plus my 3-inch thick foam cushion. That makes like a 28-ish inch tall seat. That's really tall. As someone who's 6'1", when I sit on it, my feet kind of dangle, but it is what it is. The bigger problem is that once I built my upper cabinets, I no longer have enough room to sit on the bench seat. Not with good posture anyways. And you know, here at Dalton's Adventures, we like good posture. I have this section over here, which is fine for me, or I can lay on the bench, but it's a little inconvenient sometimes. I can't lower the bench because I need that room for the surfboard storage. And if I were to raise my cabinets, not only would it be so time consuming that it makes me sick to my stomach, but it would eat up a ton of storage. And that's my food storage. That's valuable space. I can't part ways with my food storage. In the meantime, I'm happy enough just using this section of the bench and having the other part available for my smaller guests. I suppose it's more incentive for me to finally install that swivel seat. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to share it with somebody in your life who you know likes to sit. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh no, I forgot to hit record. Try to count try to count the number of times I say two. What am I saying? So I chose 2x2s because they're lightweight and strong, just like me. Once I had both the Velcro and I topped the whole thing with a custom sized bench pad that I added online. Let's say that I added online. So I needed at least that much clearance. Kind of helps prevent any moisture buildup or any rock. One last check. Check. We are live.